Hi, welcome to the Divine Insight Show. Thank you so much for joining us wherever and whenever you're doing so. There's no accident that you're here. I'm joined today by Anne Berube. Anne has led international seminars and workshops alongside best-selling authors Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, Elizabeth Gilbert, and many others. She's the author of Be, Feel, Think, Do, which we talked about before on a previous show, and I'm so honored and excited for her to join me again to talk about her newest book, The Burnout Antidote, a spiritual guide to empowerment for empaths, overgivers, and highly sensitive people. And it's such a pleasure and honor for me to talk with you again. Thank you, and welcome to the show.
Oh, Travis, it's so good to be here with you again. I'm so happy. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. The title alone is compelling and implies that burnout is a disease needing a cure. Has it come to that really? Has burnout become so problematic as to need an antidote?
Yes, I think we're all experiencing it. And I think the timing of the book is kind of pretty bang on when it comes
Perfect.
when it comes to us just coming out of this pandemic slowly. And, some of us are expected to just go back to work like the way that it was before, but we're burnt out. Like we've had a hard time, even though some of us have been able to take some time away and take some time for ourselves and notice like how our boundaries, are important, and set our boundaries. But then, there's this whole like, okay, well, what about the deeper layers that, make me kind of go out and still deplete myself and still drain myself in the name of service or the name of, helping others or being a good person. And I think those need to be looked at and addressed right now. Is
Absolutely.
this whole level, this dimension of self-love.
That's so right. And so poignant, because we had a collective conscious decision as a global humanity to go into a pause and reflect, I think, on what is important to us, how we value our time, who we spend it with and on. And this book is so perfectly timed to bring us more into our health and wellness. And what's so unique about empaths, overgivers, and highly sensitive people among all those suffering that would demand special attention when it comes to burnout? Isn't it the same for everyone?
So I wrote the book because I needed to learn that as an empath, as a highly sensitive person, and someone who definitely overgave a lot in my life. And what I realized is that a lot of these, a lot of souls were born in, and they were born with the mission and the intention and the desire to help, to create, to inspire, to support, to guide, to serve other people. And many of us were born in environments that were not necessarily sustainable for us to keep that beautiful empathy in a good way, in that highly sensitive nature. And it was all very, very intelligent. We needed to experience that in order to have our gifts come in a very powerful way. So it's not about saying, wow, I wish that didn't happen to me. I wish I'd been born in a better family. That's not what it's about at all. It's to recognize that the body remembers. The body remembers that there was there was a point where we couldn't have boundaries because we were in our environment as children. We needed to cope, we needed to find ways to protect ourselves. And so a lot of the times that's when we developed those porous boundaries or those rigid boundaries, which allowed us to protect our high sensitivity and our gifts, but in a way that eventually will be detrimental for our energy. Eventually we hit a wall. Eventually we can't continue to give from that place of something's missing. And that's that I really want people who are highly sensitive to know that that's a superpower, like that is actually a gift, and
Right.
hiding from the world is not the solution, because we need you.
Exactly. Cocooning yourself into your isolated system isn't sustainable.
No, and and it doesn't allow you to share your gifts with the world, which is what we need more and more these days. We need these beautiful healers to be, to have their cup full and to be empowered and to be
Mhm.
grounded so that they can share their gifts without depleting themselves.
Exactly. I love that. And every chapter includes activities, tools, and exercises that can be put to immediate use in readers' lives to help them move out of burnout and into more energy. You have guided meditations, visual imagery exercises, self-inquiry worksheets, and even tips on overcoming obstacles and ways to integrate this into people's lives. I mean, wow. How did you develop all this?
It's actually the work I've been doing for the past 12 years. I this is what I do with clients that come to my workshop. And so basically, the process of first stop, so that the book is a 7-step process. And the
Mhm.
first step is to stop, right? Like um we can't address these porous boundaries, and we can't address the reason for us being drained if we continue to do the things we do, if we continue to stay in our environment, often not very healthy environment, and if we continue to be around certain people that take from us, right? So we do
Mhm.
need to take that space. It's really, really important. And that's the first act of self-love in the book, is to say, I matter enough to take that space, to give myself permission to take that space and that time. And in the book, I talk, I give examples and I give ideas on, the smallest retreat that you can do for no money and barely any time to, take that 7-day quiet
Take the
retreat.
deep dive.
Yeah, take a deep dive and really change your life in, very, very quickly. And so, um, and then that's what people do when they come into my workshops, is that they're saying, I'm going to take the weekend, or I'm going to take the next 5 days to focus on myself. So reading the book and doing the exercises is saying the same thing. Like, I'm going to take that time and I'm going to do that. So, and then the rest of the steps are really a deep dive um, into, okay, why is it that I am of service? Like, what is the reason for that desire? Is it coming from, I need to please people because when I please, I know who I am? Is it coming from, I need to be needed because when I'm needed, I know who I am?
Or validated.
Yes, exactly. And, or, is it really coming from, well, it's because who I really am. Like, I really am this light, this core essence, this connection to source. And then from that place, I can serve in a very different way. So we look at those early childhood wounds, and we kind of face that wound in the book. Like,
Mhm.
there's exercise to go as deep as you want. And then, every single time we face a wound, Travis, there's power behind it every
Mhm.
single time. I mean, it's not there to punish you. It's not there to slow you down on purpose because you need to be, redirected or something. Like, there's no other thing that's controlling all this. It's actually this beautiful power and gift that you have inside that's right behind this wound. So yeah, and so basically took the process that I take people through my workshops and then put it all into this book.
Beautiful. And you talk a lot about altruism, being of service. If someone has a kind of calling or purpose in their lives like that, isn't it the case that it makes a person selfish to spend time on themselves before getting to others?
That's what our internal dialogue says. That's what we've been modeled, especially if we as children needed to be there for the adults around us, right? And
Mm,
and
yeah.
again, it's not to blame anyone. It's not to make anybody the villain, but we have to be honest with how that felt for that little girl or that little boy. Really listening to her and feeling the pain that she has. And so we often we often think that it is selfish but it's the opposite. It's actually such a deep act of self-love. It's radical self-love to take that time. And then it's also an act of love for other people, because when you do take that step back and you do take the time to do the healing and the work, and then you reconnect with your core essence and you reconnect with your power, your capacity as a guide or a healer or someone of service is so much greater. And so instead of giving little bits and pieces here because you're so depleted, and then having resentment, sometimes we don't want to have it, but we have resentment when we're so depleted. Instead of that, you've honored your light so much so that when you show up, your cup is full, and there's like a clarity of purpose in the moment that you're with the other person, and your impact is greater. And so it's really about, okay, what kind of impact do you want? Do you want your gifts to be amplified so much so that you know they're unique and they're powerful, and you feel fulfilled when you give from that place? And I think that that's one of the big things that us healers have had a hard time accepting, is that our fulfillment is important.
And is a priority.
Is a priority. Yes.
And you make a promise in this incredible book that people can increase their impact in the world and their capacity for service without draining themselves or losing their health or happiness. I mean, wow. Some people would wonder, is that even possible? And you say that it is through the process that you've already described a bit of, and through the book, which I'm so excited that you're sharing with me today. And we won't have time to go through all of the steps in this show, but I encourage everyone who watches this or listens to this to get your book right now and get some relief from all this burnout that we've all been experiencing and in your life. And what do you mean when you call someone an empath? I mean, I understand what that means in my life and my healing work, because that was the first time that I understood that I was an empath, because when I was working with people, I would feel their emotions more than I would feel mine.
Yeah, absolutely. So an empath is someone who can feel the energy around them very easily, and can kind of tune into vibrations that a lot of people don't. So a lot of people are able to, you know, kind of ignore, or just like it kind of glides off of them like water on a duck. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then an empath though can't do that. An empath is always aware of what's going on around them. And often an empath wasn't taught how to manage that high sensitivity,
Right.
and wasn't taught also like how to recognize how their bodies are talking to them when there's something that they need to take space from, or to, you know, to kind of keep at arm's length. So, and because a lot of empaths were born in environments that did not protect that beautiful gift, they're used to putting their needs second. They're used to
afterthought.
Yeah, exactly. And thinking, well, being of service is the right thing to do. It's a noble thing. I'll continue even if it means I'm going to drain myself. And I think that also comes from religion a little bit, this idea that you just, like a martyr, like the more you give, the more you're depleted, the more a good person.
Self-pedestalized.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And so, I think the first step is to accept that this is who you are, and also know that it is a gift, even though it feels like a burden sometimes. But there's so many resources, I mean, including in this book, on how to be empowered by your empathic nature.
And what does spirituality have to do with whether or not someone feels empowered in their lives or not?
Well, I think if someone understands that they are more than their minds and their bodies, then it will open up their perspective and their awareness to a deeper dimension of who they are. And so if we only think of ourselves as human beings with a mind and a body, then we can't see that behind the wound, there's actually spiritual power. Because who we really are, that presence that is expanded and goes beyond the body and the mind, and that was there before we were born and will continue to be there after we die, that essence holds our gifts, holds our power, and holds our potential. So if you think about the human being as just a body and the mind, you can talk and talk and talk therapy for 10, 20 years, and you'll just go in circle, because there's no opening into the more that you can be.
Right.
So to me, that's the key, is that if I'm with a client, and I'm sure you can relate to this, Travis, is that I hold the person in the more that they can be. So I see them as the expanded soul and possibilities that they hold, as opposed to the limited problems that they're presenting. And so that changes everything in the conversation, because the goal is to not come back to normal, but the goal is to really go with change, like allowing creativity to be part of your life, and then take you to this next expansion of your an evolution phase of the life of your soul here on earth.
Right. That's what we're all here to do.
Yes,
And you talk about embodiment and how that's so important for empaths, especially. And so what do you mean by that?
So what happened to me is that, in order to be seen, to be loved, to have attention, I needed to control and manage my response, my presence, as a child. And in order to do that, I had to quickly detach from the inner world of my body and go and live mostly in my intellect. And so when you're in your intellect, you can be on guard, you can be vigilant. When you are and you're in protection mode, fight or flight, right? So you're always ready to protect yourself or to save someone. You're always ready to jump and do something. But when you are in your body, you need to feel safe to be in your body, and you need to embrace change and creativity when you are in your body. And so when that's not the case, we become adults, and then we have to kind of unwind all that, and then relearn how to be in our bodies, because we're born with the awareness in every part of our body. We're born even with an awareness, not just of our whole body, but actually the space around us in a very grounded way. And then as we grow up, our awareness starts to go, okay, just the body. And then we go up, okay, just the intellect. And then even in the intellect, we separate, that's me, that's not me. So we become very fragmented. We become really divided from our wholeness. And we cannot access wholeness through the intellect, through the mind. We have to make the journey back down into the core of our being and start to remember how our body communicates with us. And so when I think of the soul and the body, I think of the cover of the Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon CD cover, yes, with the triangle, and then this beautiful light that I see as the soul coming through the body, the triangle, and then the rainbow being the life you manifest. And so when the soul moves through this instrument, because I see the body as an instrument, like a processor, it's a biological processor of energy and information. It is the instrument that my soul chose for this human adventure. So when it moves through and it's uninterrupted, because maybe it's not triggering any limiting beliefs, or there's no, that's not triggering any old trauma, then there's this alignment and resonance with all parts of myself, and then I create my life. But then when it hits something in the body, a limiting belief or a trauma, then it creates that division and it creates this fragmentation of myself. Exactly. Yeah. So returning to the body for people who've had traumas in childhood, or, even as young adults, can be difficult, but it is the most authentic and most real and most honest relationship you can have with life. It really, really is. And it's kind of facing yourself and owning and taking full responsibility for your life. And that definitely takes willingness and courage. But like I said, if any of your listeners, think that authentic life is what they desire, then the way to that is integration through the body.
Beautiful. How is life working for me, not against me, as a victim mentality, and the spiritual bypassing that people can do. And as an empath and intuitive Reiki master, I've seen how powerfully conditioned belief systems are and how they tire the chakras and the energy systems in the entire human energy field. So I was intrigued and excited to see your discussion of core beliefs. What core belief systems have you found to be the most detrimental to a person's being able to embody their lives?
I think you've heard it many times, but it is, I'm not enough. I'm not enough, and I am not worthy of love, of true love, of deep love.
Unconditional love.
Absolutely. And it's a big deal to accept that kind of love. If it's something you've had to renounce a long time ago, if it's something you've had to accept that it wasn't going to be part of, of your life, and then your whole body has to be on board, because your body's going to go, whoa, no, that kind of love doesn't exist. Remember what happened? Yeah. Remember what happened? And so that core limiting belief is really at the root of empaths and overgivers and spiritual healers and guides and all that, their burnout. Absolutely. And, a lot of people who would not identify with any of those terms also can benefit from deepening their self-love. Because everything you do, if you do it from a place that's not aligned with your core essence, but you're doing it from a limiting belief that no longer serves you, you won't be able to do it forever. You'll hit a wall. We all have those experiences where life just says, that's enough. That's enough.
Take a time out.
Time out. Exactly.
So what's this inner child, and what does it have to do with burnout? Some might see it as being some woo term that has no practical experiential based purpose.
Yeah. The inner child is that part of yourself that you've put aside to survive your environment. So it's that little boy or that little girl who she was, exactly how she was. It just wasn't safe for her or him to be all they could be, and to be vulnerable, and to be sensitive, and to be present without having to protect themselves. That's the inner child. It's the most innocent part of you that is hidden under layers of conditioned beliefs, layers of fear, layers of traumas. The good news is that it's never gone. We never lose the inner child, that core you.
Thank God I want to play.
Exactly. It's always there. It's just a matter of becoming reacquainted with the inner child. And I talk about this in the book, talking to the inner child like you would talk to an actual child. Would you be if a child came in and was upset and angry and sad and distressed, like, what would you do? You wouldn't say, go away, shut up, or I don't want to hear it, that's bad. You wouldn't say that now as an adult, especially if you're an empath. You'd be like, oh my gosh, sweetheart, I'm right here, I've got you. That's how you want to talk to yourself. Hi, beautiful. Hi, sweetheart. Oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. But I love you. I love you, and I'm here. I am here for you, and I'm not going anywhere. And that's really important, because the trust that you build between you and the inner child is the foundation of you reclaiming your gifts. It really, really, truly is. Because, and I talk about this in the book, I had a limiting belief that when you're a spiritual, when you found your path as a, spiritual teacher, spiritual coach, whatever you want to call it, that you don't burn out. I had this limiting belief that, and probably some spiritual bypassing in there, that when you find your path, that's it. You will never burn out. And I was so surprised that after a few years of coaching, I burnt out. And so I started to look at what that was. And my limiting belief was, I don't know who I am when I'm not needed. I don't know who I am when people don't need me, because I remember being needed my entire life. And it took 3 months. I had to take 3 months off my practice to stay with this little girl and just love her and ask her every morning, who are you when people don't need you? And every morning I get this weight, and this like feeling of heavy, and there was sadness, and there was no answer. But I know, because of the work that I've been doing, for myself and with clients for, over a decade, is that I have to be patient, and I have to build this trust with her. Because I have a lot of clients, when when we do inner child work and they meet their inner child for the first time, they'll say, oh, she was like, her arms were crossed and her back was to me and she was angry. And again, like, if a child was that upset, you would say, hi, I'm here. I'm right here, and your emotions are valid. And when you're ready, I'll be here, because I'm not going anywhere. And so if you think about all the times we've abandoned ourselves and we've betrayed ourselves, that inner child, like, no, you don't mean it this time. It's like, no,
Nope.
nope.
Not gonna hear it.
Exactly.
I'm gonna sit in the corner and pout. Who are you?
And it took about 3 months for me. And then, one morning I woke up and I asked, like, who are you when people don't need you? And then instead of this weight and the sadness, there was this like movement. There was a little excitement. There was fluttering. And I was like, okay, now there's something, right? But it took time. And I think that's really important to know that it's not necessarily a quick fix. But when you use the body, it goes faster than if you do talk therapy. Much faster, because the body's designed to process the stories that are stored in our nervous system. It's designed to do that in like quantum leaps. So when we allow our attention to be below the neck, like I say, like go deeper, like go away from your thoughts into your body, and you deepen the breath, and then you start to feel emotions. Instead of going up and trying to avoid those emotions
or analyze it,
stay there. Yeah, stay there and increase the breath, even though you're going to be tempted to stop the breath. Counter that instinct and just allow the breath to deepen into the pain. And then the body starts to do what it's designed to do. Yeah.
I was going to ask you about that, because you can't throw a stone in LA without hitting someone doing breath work. How is it incorporated into your work as a tool to reduce burnout?
Well, when trauma happens, breath is one of the first things to go. So the example that I give is, let's say you're a 3-year-old and you're playing with a ball, and then suddenly your ball goes into the street, and then you're running towards the ball, but there's a car coming. So your dad sees it and he grabs you by the arm and yanks you out of traffic. So obviously he did the right thing. But what happens is that in that moment, the body where the child was yanked out of traffic, the body remembers that, oh, this is not a safe world. So that would be like a small example of the body will remember that. So the body will do what it can to protect. So it will eventually create a belief that this is not safe. Danger, exactly. And so in that moment, in order to protect yourself, the breath stops, and it becomes very shallow. And so let's say that happened a lot, but the situation is different. Maybe there was, an abusive relationships in your house, or maybe there was violence, or maybe there was like substance abuse or something, and you had to constantly protect yourself, and your breath was interrupted all the time. So when you become an adult and you're in a safe environment, but your body doesn't know that. And so when something happens that's not a danger to you, but your body perceives it as a danger, your breath will be interrupted, will stop for a little while, or will be just really shallow. And what that does is that it keeps you in fight or flight. It keeps you in the sympathetic system, which is a state of the nervous system that is always in vigilance and is ready to protect itself. You can't be in that state for very long until something happens physically, emotionally, in your environment, like where you'll need to address this, because it's not sustainable. You only have a certain amount of reserve of energy to live in fight or flight in your life. And so what happens is when you start to feel the stressor, if you can have the awareness of deepening the breath in that moment when your whole body's saying, let's stop breathing, right? That changes everything. And so that takes a while to get it to become a habit, but it is the most amazing habit you can have. So now when something happens, let's say someone yells, or there's because I had a pretty bad car accident. So if I hear like tires screeching, my body tightens and my breath. And then so now I'll go, I will just exaggerate the breath as
Yeah.
soon as
I tend to tap the thymus whenever I go into PTSD mode.
yes, that helps as well. Exactly. Absolutely. And so so the deepening of the breath, what it says first, it says, okay, we are safe. And with my breath, I'm telling my whole body that you don't need to hold on to this anymore. And then with my deep breath, I tell my body that something new can happen. So I can actually tap into creativity, into healing, into rest and restoration, and into creating something new. So the opposite of fight or flight obviously is rest and regeneration, which is the parasympathetic system. So you're in when you're in your parasympathetic system, your nervous system is at ease and it's not protecting itself from anything. And then your thoughts are very different because now they're new and they're fresh, they're more peaceful. They're not coming from the noise of stress of the sympathetic system that's operating in your body. And so we can go for, a few days without food, maybe I don't know, a day or two without water, but breath is the element that we need the most to live and to thrive. And so it is I talk about it at the very beginning of the book because it's the tool you need to make these changes. It's really, really powerful. And people say, well, I do breathe. Yeah, you do, but you don't breathe well.
Or intentionally with purpose.
With purpose. And if you do an exaggerated deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth, you'll notice a difference in how you feel. And I say through the mouth because that's the jaw holds a lot of pressure and a lot of tension. And often this is where the fire was interrupted. It just rises in our body. And because of what we learned in our place and, to keep ourselves safe, we stopped the fire around the throat. So when you allow the jaw to drop, when you breathe out, and you may constrict the throat a little bit, so like this. You change the chemistry of your whole body, and you allow all the energy in your
Felt
throat.
really good.
Yeah, all the energy in the throat chakra to rewire itself so that it can speak the fire when the time is right, that it can engage the moment in a new way, right? Because our voice is our connection to the present moment, and it creates our reality. When we stop it, we don't create something new.
Right. And irrespective of someone's gender identity and their understanding and relationship of that, you make a distinction between a masculine side and feminine side. And you make a statement in your book that a reader's masculine should be a servant to their feminine. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So, and again, like we're talking about energy patterns, right? Like yin and yang, and we're talking about like masculine energy as in the thing that accelerates and make things happen and takes action and creates and says things and make choices, right? And so we're not thinking about people, we're thinking about the energy of it. And then, the feminine energy is this energy that is the mother. She's the one that holds and she cradles you and she keeps you safe and she tells you she loves you and she's there. And that's the energy that heals. That's the connection to that parasympathetic, like it's soft, it's safe, it's nourishing and nurturing, and it's grounded and it's embodied. And I think what's happened in our society is we valued too much the masculine energy
Mm.
without the base of the feminine. So when I wrote my first book, Be, Feel, Think, Do, I share my healing process, and it started with finding mother inside me, right? So healing the mother and finding mother inside myself. And then at the very end, I talk about finding father. And I only after did I realize that that had to happen like that. That because the father energy, the masculine energy is the one that says, you go out there, you go out in the world, and I've got you. Like, I'm your cheerleader, I support you, I will be here, always loving you, but you go out and you do your thing. And you can't do that if you don't know you are unconditionally loved. You can do it, but you can't do it with the maximum impact and with great health and great stamina and enthusiasm. At some point, we have to remember how deeply loved we are by the mother within. And so I make the distinction in the book between the two, and how if we can bring the feminine as the ground for everything we do, everything we say, everything we create, then, and it's basically saying the intellect is a servant to the heart. The masculine, this energy of choice and action and fire absolutely is needed, and it's so important, but it has to be held and supported by the intention of love. The intention of love has to be the ground of everything we do.
Beautiful. It's not sustainable otherwise.
No, and we've seen it in the world.
I've felt it too many times in my life.
I bet.
And so I've already mentioned you have more antidotes than we have time to talk about. Burnout Antidote, step 1, retreat. You're more tired than you think. Burnout Antidote, step 2, strengthen your resolve. Do you have any favorite go-to antidotes in your life?
Yes. Well, strengthen your resolve is interesting, because I see this a lot. I see it with myself, and I see it a lot with my clients, is that, okay, you make a decision to be good to yourself, to take time for yourself, to practice self-love, and then, or to go away, to take a retreat and to go
2
away.
minutes.
To go to yourself, to go somewhere for yourself. And then as soon as you make this decision, even though it felt really good when you made it, you start to hear these objections inside your head. You start to feel like this resistance from your body, but also from the people around you. Yeah. So all the people who need you and people who you serve, they say, no, you can't go, you can't do that. I need you. And so the step 2 is the part where you let go of that spiritual bypassing and you say, no, this matters, I matter, and I'm going to double down on this, even though I can feel this resistance, and the resistance comes from the worth, the self-worth. Am I worth being fulfilled? Am I worth being that healthy? Am I worth being that happy? And so I put that step in there because I see people stopping at that point. I see people going, no, and then they, just people need me, so that's the right thing to do, so I won't continue. But it's a very, very important step, and yeah, I do really like that antidote.
Yeah. Thank you. And we're running out of time, so is there anything else that you want to share about your work or share about your book?
Well, I think I usually say at the end of an interview that I just wish people could trust themselves more. There's an inner inner dialogue. There's an inner, below the neck, there's a conversation that's happening in your heart. And in that space, if you bring your breath and you bring your attention in your body, you know what you need. You really do. You have insights, you have knowings. Sometimes you have even the full body feeling of, oh, this is true. This is true. And then the mind kicks in and you go, well, no, it can't be that true. That's too good to be true. Or who am I to think something like
Looking
that?
for the other shoe.
Yeah, exactly. Like, can someone validate this knowing for me? And then maybe we'll go talk to someone and the person's like, what are you talking about? And then we dismiss our knowing. And then it could take weeks, months, years before we revisit it. And so I like to tell people to trust themselves more, that in those moments where everything feels so aligned, like even like the example of you're driving in your car, there's a song that comes on and something takes over you start to sing, tears come down, there's that feeling of alignment and you're like, why is this happening? And your mind tries to understand intellectually what's happening, but your heart knows that in this moment, it knows the truth. Maybe it's a healing, maybe it's a release, maybe it's something that was said in the song and you know that to be true. And that's breadcrumb that's going to take you to the next thing. You have to honor those moments of expansion and of deep knowing. They don't happen all the time, but when they happen, they're sacred. And until you're ready to really own it, maybe don't share it with someone you know is going to bring you down. Maybe don't share it with someone you know in advance is going to not get it. And so if you don't feel secure with it yet, then keep it as a sacred little garden for yourself and trust it and believe it. Believe your body, believe yourself. Your body never lies. So believe it.
Beautiful. The brain can convince us of all kinds of things that aren't true, but the body knows the truth.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm super excited for this book and your work. And I hope that people are able to get it and incorporate it into their lives. And thank you all so much for watching and listening. And it's no accident that you're here. So thank you all.
Thank you, Travis, so much.